Welcome back in our journey through centuries-long history of forgeries and falsifications. I am curator of this exhibition, Joanna Urbanek. In this episode, we will ask ourselves a question how people from the past tried to navigate the world of unfalsifiable construct of religious belief. How they would establish what was true for them. For centuries, the political and religious spheres have bolstered each other's claim to power and legitimacy. Each era fakes what it values most. Thus, prominent fakes and forgeries in the medieval Europe carried strong religious component. In the Middle Ages, the Pope had considerable temporal power. The famous document we will talk about in this episode, the Donation of Constantine, supposedly issued in the 4th century by the Roman Emperor Constantine, gave him the authority to expand it even further. The story says that Constantine the Great, who was once a notorious persecutor of Christians, was once struck with leprosy. He was advised to bathe in the blood of young children as a cure. But that night, in a dream, the apostles Peter and Paul appeared and told him to go find Pope Sylvester, who would cure him. Brought to the palace, Sylvester miraculously cured the emperor. To show his gratitude, Constantine granted the Pope power over Italy and the western regions of the Roman Empire, and confirmed the Pope's universal power over the Church. But did it really happen? The text of the donation was probably drafted in the second half of the 8th century. Copies survive to the present day in few medieval manuscripts, one of which we present in the exhibition. Only centuries later did critical thought undermine the authenticity of the donation of Constantine. In 1440, a Catholic priest and intellectual, Lorenzo Valla, wrote this treatise where he identified donation of Constantine as a forgery. Valla pointed out that words used in the document, like satrap, did not even exist when the donation was supposedly created. He also noticed that the donation refers to Constantinopolis, today's Istanbul. But until 330, the city was called Byzantium. Last but not least, the donation was the only source of information about such an important event. No other contemporary source mentions it. Valla's work was soon prohibited by the Roman Catholic Church. In the meantime, the donation of Constantine remained part of the canon law. Valla's conclusions became a groundbreaking discovery for Martin Luther, who was already in conflict with the papacy. Luther read Valla's treatise in early 1520. It prompted him to identify the Pope as the Antichrist. Huge step, as it was not a rhetorical expression, but an actual accusation. In this first edition of Luther's Passional Christi et Antichristi, printed in 1521 in Wittenberg, the woodcuts by Lucas Cranach the Elder contrast the Passion of Christ to the sins of the Pope. The Catholic Church never officially admitted that the donation was a forgery. It simply gradually lost its influence on European politics, in which new players fought for supremacy. As with any coveted item, objects of devotion have a long history of falsification. The cult of relics is no exception. Throughout medieval Europe, the memories and remains of holy men and women were widely venerated for their ability to perform miracles. Communities without their own relics went to great lengths to import them. Pilgrims traveled far and wide to visit famous relics, bolstering a thriving tourist industry. Mass-produced souvenirs, such as these badges, were bought up by visiting pilgrims. Unsurprisingly, the lucrative trade in relics was accompanied by vigorous market in counterfeits. Several medieval intellectuals were critical of false relics. In the early 12th century, Guibert, abbot of Nogent, formulated arguments against cult of certain saints and their relics. This reliquary, which originally contained relics of John the Baptist, comes from 11th century. Guibert ridiculed the abundance of relics attributed to John the Baptist. Both Constantinople and Angers claimed to possess his head, as if John the Baptist had been two-headed. This exceptionally beautiful golden reliquary of the virgin breast milk was created in France around 1250. Guibert refuted the veneration of the breast milk relics of Mary. He considered Mary a humble person, unlikely to have preserved her own milk, and that if she had, it would have been soon evaporated without a trace. The problem with the cult of relics did not involve only questionable objects of veneration. The more important the local saint, the more prestigious the religious center became. Thus, their biographies were sometimes rewritten to fit the growing ambitions of the local communities. In Limoges, the local monk and historian Ademar promoted the story according to which Saint Martial, a 3rd century bishop of Limoges, had actually been one of the apostles. Ademar convinced many, raising the prestige of the Abbey Saint Martial. But a wandering monk, Benedict of Cusa, challenged this story. He simply pointed out that it had absolutely no confirmation in earlier Christian tradition. But the new, corrected biography of Saint Martial, created in the 11th century, kept its popularity. Look at this miniature from the 15th century breviary, showing Saint Martial attending the multiplication of the loaves, standing among the apostles. There was no single religious authority to declare someone a saint or to control their worship. Growing critique from within and by the Reformation urged the Church to finally react. In the 16th century, after the Council of Trent, special papal commission was established to control the cult of saints, but forgeries continued to thrive. Confronted with the sphere of religious belief, it is our decision to look for the answers using different criteria. Let's look at this precious reliquary casket lid showing the massacre of the innocents. Innocents were venerated as the first Christian martyrs. The abbot Guibert of Nogent pointed out that the innocents were not even Christians, so they could not be treated as martyrs or saints. He argued, though, that still God could perform miracles through any person or item. There is not one objective truth. During the centuries, people have applied different ways of reasoning to determine it. Objects allowing people to connect with remarkable personalities remain in high demand also today. Memorabilia, especially when related to celebrities, such as this piece devoted to Princess Diana, are sold as offering a personal link with the dead and quasi-religious drama surrounding them.